That's just the stupidest fucking thing to call this, because we're putting the symptom at the heart of this discussion, when what we really need to talk about is just men are being too lazy to go out and make new friends or foster the ones that they already have. Hey everyone, I'm Mike.
I'm Andrew.
We are the Midlife Guys. So I want to kick things off right away because we've got a big topic to talk about. Friendships. So I'm incredibly fortunate in the fact that Andrew and I have been friends, and he is my best friend, and our friendship has been going on for 20 years now. And we've always had each other's backs, even when we disagree and just argue. And last night I was looking through my text messages, and there are about 12 friends that I text on a weekly basis, just to catch up with, see how they're doing, but also, we try to get together as much as possible. But I was reading through some articles, and apparently I'm in the minority when it comes to keeping in touch with folks. So, a study in 2024, I'm reading this because I want to get it right. A study in 2024 by the Survey Center on American Life found that only 26% of men reported having 6 or more close friends. Polling a similar question in 1990, Gallup had put this figure at 55%. The same Survey Center study found that 17% have 0 close friends, more than a 5-fold increase since 1990. And U.S. men aged 15 to 35 are among the loneliest in wealthy countries, with 25% reporting feeling lonely for a lot of the previous day, according to a 2025 Gallup poll. So there's been a lot of discussion in the news and in other podcasts recently about younger men feeling lonely and not building up the friendships. But the numbers would indicate that a lot of guys in their middle age also are experiencing the same problem. So what about you, Andrew? What does your friend circle look like?
Yeah, I think like you, I'm probably a little bit of an outlier in that I feel like I've got a lot of good friends. And I will say I'm not texting a dozen people weekly who are friends. So good for you, Mike. I just don't necessarily communicate exactly the same way. But I was, reflecting on this because we were going to talk about friendship, and I can think of at least 10 friends who I feel like are really close friends. Like, as you said, we're kind of best friends, but there are probably another 10 people who I feel very close to, and I could call if I needed anything, and they would be there. They would support me or help in whatever way I'd probably need it, and I would do the same for them. And then probably another 15 or 20 people I consider fairly good friends, or we see each other on a consistent basis. So I feel, when you've read those statistics, I feel really fortunate that I have a good big circle of friends. And I think it's kind of interesting too, because friendship to me kind of fits in different buckets. Like, there are some of those friends who I see a lot and we talk pretty consistently, but there are also friends who maybe I don't see in person for a couple of years, but then when we get back together again, we can kind of pick it right back up where we left off. Like, we have that kind of deeper connection there. So it's kind of, thinking about the different types of friendships. I feel lucky that I've got a big group of friends, and I feel sad that so many midlife guys don't, or a lot don't have that. Especially because this topic reminded me of some research that I remember. It's this very famous study called the Grant study that Harvard conducted over an 85-year period. So it followed a group of guys from when they were kids, starting in the late 30s through, I guess, 2023, 24 is I think when they released the final study. So 85 years followed the same group of guys throughout their entire life. And you know what the study found the most important factor to long-term health and happiness is? Quality of relationships with other people. By and far, that's what makes someone's life better. I mean, I think that we both can probably attest to that from our experiences, but I think that's very true. And the fact that there's scientific evidence showing that, and yet still so many midlife guys are lacking that, is just sort of, it's sad, and it's kind of troubling too.
It is. And, a big reason I wanted to talk about this is because, and kudos to you, Andrew, for bringing up the topic. But a big reason I wanted to talk about this is because this is not isolated to the United States. We're seeing this worldwide where younger men and middle aged men are just having a really hard time keeping and maintaining friends. And as a result, they feel isolated, they're being radicalized, and this is a huge problem. But what I really get frustrated by is that when I'm looking through some of this research, it's frustrating the way we're talking about it. So, under the last administration here in the U.S., the Surgeon General under the Biden administration called this a loneliness epidemic, and that's just the stupidest fucking thing to call this, because we're putting the symptom at the heart of this discussion, when what we really need to talk about is just men are being too lazy to go out and make new friends or foster the ones that they already have. I mean, friendships, like any relationship, take work. You have to constantly communicate. You have to check in with folks. I mean, you don't have to sit there and go into deep conversations with anybody, but just grab a beer or just be like, hey, what's up? How's it going? Via text message. It's not that big of a deal. And I understand that, especially in midlife, time is, very limited. If you're raising a family or you've got work obligations, but all this structure that we have created to talk about why men aren't fostering relationships is just bullshit. It's bullshit, and I think we've got to stop talking about. We need to be more direct. Try a little harder, guys. Just try a little harder to sustain friendships or make new ones.
All right. Well, I have a slightly different view, and I think you're oversimplifying things a little bit. I mean, I think you're right that laziness can be an issue there, but I do think there is a lot of loneliness that we're seeing. I think we also need to talk about some broader context and factors that I think contribute to this. And so it's not just like people refuse to like get off the couch. I mean, I think there's probably some of that, but I don't think that's all of this. So three things that kind of come to my mind. One is that I do think it's, at least for me, I think it's more challenging to make friends as you get older. Like, I felt like it was easier to make friends. And I think there might even be some research around this. Like, when you're younger or go through sort of like, key developmental phases in your life, like as a kid or in high school, college, maybe your first job, whatever those kind of things are, like the relationships or bonds you create there, I think are just stronger and easier than when you're in midlife or older. So I do think there's something to it. It's a little bit harder. It doesn't mean you should stop trying, but I do think it can be a little bit tougher to do that. I also think, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit more later as well, but the role of technology is not helpful. So for, the past 20 years, we've been told by tech leaders that technology will bring us together. We're going to build community and it's going to be great. I mean, there's some of that, but I think what we've clearly seen over the past 20 years is that the communities or virtual spaces should not and cannot take the place of like physical interaction and actually building quality relationships and friendships. And I think way too often people, including midlife guys, are sort of replacing that human interaction with an addiction to a screen, whether that's, their phone or something else. So I think that that's a huge problem. And the other issue that I think of related to this, that's sort of connected to the technology piece, is that as we've all become more addicted to technology or not wanting to leave our house, we've lost what a lot of social scientists call third spaces. So it's not home, it's not work, but it's those like other places where people come together to build relationships or community or to interact, things like, church or sports leagues or parks, community groups like Rotary Club, whatever it is, like that's all, at least in the United States for sure, kind of fallen off. So the fact that like we don't have these extra places where people can go, or at least aren't willing to go, I think is also a huge problem. So yeah, I think laziness is part of it, but I do think it's bigger than just that. I think we've got some societal issues we need to figure out.
I mean, doesn't that get to my point? You talk about these third spaces. I mean, that the fact that midlife guys aren't going to these places or aren't getting involved in the community, I mean, that's just laziness.
I think laziness is an oversimplification. Part of it's like these things don't exist as much as they used to. And it's hard to, I think, kind of create new ones. Um, I think it's challenging. I do feel like technology probably does have a big piece to play with this, that we've all kind of become addicted to these devices and are just less likely to have, personal interactions. And it's not hard to do necessarily either. Like you do, I think, a good job of trying to bring people together. I feel like pretty frequently like hosting dinners, right? Or like inviting people over for dinners, having like parties, trying to bring people together. Like that's not, I don't think a huge lift, and we should encourage people to like do more of that rather than just like sit at home and binge Netflix or whatever it is that they might be doing, or playing video games or doom scrolling on their phone. I feel like there needs to be a bigger push than just being like, you individual need to figure this out. Like I think we need to try to create some sort of like environment where it's easier for people to come together to in physical spaces.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess I disagree with the premise that it is harder to make friends in middle age. I don't think that that's true, because I mean, I'm looking at my screen right now, and I'm getting text messages from a guy that I only met like 5 months ago. But he's like, "Let's hang out on Saturday. Let's go do something." So I just disagree with that premise. When we think about our friend circles and how you build new friendships, it's because of a common entity, whether it be school or church or whatever. But it's also, a bigger part of it is the friends that you already have, and your friend circle, their network becomes your network. And so if we just try to keep up with the relationships that we have, then your friend circle will continue to get bigger. So I kind of I don't know, I just disagree with that whole premise.
Well, I think it's also funny. I don't know if you all heard this, but I pinged because I forgot to put do not disturb my computer with a message, someone wanting to like catch up. So that was kind of funny and perfect timing. Which I don't love that it undercuts what I was trying to say. But I do think to some extent you are a little bit of an outlier, I think, in that regard. And I wish I'd prepared. I'd not looked up before. I'm fairly certain there is research showing that if you poll people, they say it's generally harder to make friends the older you get in life. I don't think it means it's not possible. I just think that you're also a very outgoing, gregarious person a lot of the time. So I think that you have an easier, I think it's easier for you to make friends than it might be for some others too.
And he doesn't have kids. You're talking about
without
kids.
So true. That is
somebody
a huge
with
point.
Kids. Come on, guys. That's like the elephant.
It is. No, I think that's a great point. I will say, I don't think kids fully explains like why midlife guys aren't necessarily like feel lonely or aren't always connected. I think that's a piece of it for sure, because kids do like take up all of your time. But I think kids and having other obligations definitely does play a part in this.
Yeah, I mean, the guy that texted me does have kids, so I'm not going to sit there and say that either. I mean, I think it's
Does he
healthy.
want to hang out with his kids? Clearly not.
No.
Or maybe bring the kids.
I think like
to
every
hang out.
parent, I don't know. But I think like every parent, you need that break at some point. You do need to break from, just to hang out and chat about non-family related stuff, whether it be sports or whatever.
I mean, I will say too, I think kids is a wrinkle for sure. And having two of them, they can take up a lot of time and energy. Not that they're not worth it, but they take up a lot of time and energy. I do think that in that sense, though, again, this is where I think it's not just pure laziness. I think exhaustion might have a place to play here, but you got to try to maybe put in some additional effort. So like, for example, we have some friends who live, I don't know, like 1,000 miles away in a different state, a different part of the country. And once a month, and they have young kids too, once a month, we all do a virtual, like a Zoom call, basically as a FaceTime. We FaceTime with each other for like an hour, and it's like 4 of us that just get a couple of drinks and we just sit and talk to each other. It's kind of like we're in the same room. We have to do it, at 8:30 at night after the kids go to bed, and hopefully they stay in bed. But it just, you have to kind of adjust, I guess, what those relationships or how you try to maintain them, I think it looks a little different, but it's still possible to do. It just, I think it takes a little bit more effort.
Yeah,
And some
but
of
I
those
mean, I think
calls are great. Oh, sorry, I was gonna say like they're really enjoyable, and they're one good use of technology is that the four of us can talk like we're in a room together, but it's
yeah,
worthwhile.
I think that yet again, you've created something. You've made the effort to create, a platform or a medium in which you can keep up that relationship. But a lot of folks just don't do that, and it seems like it's getting worse. But you're right. I mean, technology can bring people together, but it can also be a huge detriment. So,
It isolates people more than brings them together, it feels like. But yeah, no, it can do both.
I mean, speaking of that, I mean, and I'm going to get a ton of nasty grams about this, but I don't care. Because one of the things that I've found among a certain demographic of guys that I know in middle age, is that they're playing too many fucking video games too. And it's impacting their social life. So, yet again, let me read this. According to Pew Research, more than half, 58% of men ages 30 to 49 play video games, and 40% from 50 to 64 on a daily basis. It boggles my mind. And these folks, so let's say you're married and you have a couple of kids. Is your stress release really going and playing a fucking video game? If you want to play puzzles like Sudoku or crossword, on your phone, that's fine. But that's not what Pew is talking about here. They're pointing to like actual video games, like playing Xbox and shit like that. Are you serious? Are we really so shallow that we're just dicking away all of our time in front of a screen, kind of what you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, I mean, I will say I'm not a gamer, so I would love for folks who have that experience or like to play video games or explain why it's an outlet or release for them, like post some comments, let us know, because I feel like I don't know that world. I mean, I've never really been into video games, even growing up. Like we never had video game systems, or at least I didn't. My younger brother, I will say, had an original PlayStation and a Nintendo 64, and I do remember as a kid playing a lot of the GoldenEye James Bond N64 game, which was classic late 90s. It was fantastic. But that's the extent of my video game experience. So I'm not a great person to probably
really
comment on it.
Aging us there. Really,
I am aging us. Yeah. It was a great game, but yeah, I mean, I do think that research does seem to show that, like, again, I think we're falling in that technology trap where you're kind of, maybe I don't know if it's a void or you're kind of replacing video games with trying to maintain those real in-person relationships. And that can definitely be tough and a challenge. And it's just, I don't think that's the best way to go, but I guess it's also a balance at the same time, right? So if like that is your release, you need it for a little bit, that's great. But I think if it becomes, where, as you said, Mike, a thing where kind of it takes over your free time, then that's, I don't think, great.
Okay. All right.
Are you a gamer, Freeman? Please jump in and have
this
okay.
This is painful. What hours do you normally hang out with your friends, you guys? What hours of the day?
Depends on the day.
Give me a range. When you go for coffee, you get a meal, right? Maybe you go for dinner after dinner. Okay.
Yeah.
Does the Pew research say when the people are playing video games? Because I play video games most nights at around starting at like 10:30 or 11 p.m. until midnight. You want me to ring you up, Mike, and say, "Hey, you around? You want to go get a beer at 11?" What are you talking about? These are apples and oranges. I don't think the comparison is, should I go get a coffee with my friend or should I stay inside and play, Breath of the Wild for 2 hours instead? The decompression happens at the end of the day for most gamer dads I know after the kids are in bed. So like, yeah, you could go like get a beer, but if your argument is that video games are less healthy than drinking a beer, then I don't know, man. Maybe it isn't, especially when socialization is also a part of online video gaming. I'm not a big online gamer, but that is for a lot of people, a lot of men, a way to connect. Anyway, you guys are out of your depth on this one, I think. I don't buy it for a second.
Well, thank you for providing the video game perspective. I mean, I think that that you bring up a fair point about depends on like when you're doing it. And I don't know the research well enough to know if we dive deep into how often it's happening. But I do think if people are choosing like, and it's not just video games, right? If they're choosing to like, I'm going to sit by myself or do something by myself all the time instead of going out to meet up with someone. I mean, that's not great, right? So I think it's, again, how do you kind of figure out where that balance is?
Yeah, I mean, video games are, I mean, for God's sakes, you could really call Facebook or Instagram just a video game too. Because, I mean, they've all been gamified so much.
They're different. I'm going to assume
this is the most old man I have ever heard you sound. Granted, this is only the 5th episode. I don't know you that well, but this is like shocking old man language.
I mean, we have gotten so used to just sitting in front of a fucking screen. It is ridiculous. Just go out and talk to people. Go out and like hang out with folks, or just pick up the phone too and talk to somebody. It's I'll
give you a ring tonight at 11:30.
You know what? I'll probably be awake. But one of the things that you were talking about your experiences, but I still know people from college who were gamers, and they're still gamers. And you know what? You try to hang out with them, they're still gaming it in the evenings. They're not married. They have no kids. The gaming part has just become, their whole personality. And if they were in college, they were around their 40s as well. And I'm like, what the hell? I mean, that's a huge problem when gaming has become your whole identity. And so I think there's clearly people that do that, and so I think we can't dismiss video games being part of the problem in this matrix.
There are thresholds, hours in the day that you can get critical when it borderlines obsessive. If video games are your identity, that's not a bad thing if your friends also have video games as an identity, right? People who go to Comic Cons, people who engage in fandom, you're talking about online communities, right? I mean, people get very deep into some games, mythologies, characters, stories. They engage with other people about that. That's there, especially for people who are more socially awkward. That's why, I mean, gamers have a history of being nerds for a long time. It's more common now, but to not be a nerd, just video games are more common now. But if that's like a way that you just can like find some friends, normally that's a good thing, right? Normally that's how it works. People are not just playing video games. Like the person you knew, I'm going to guess around 20 years ago, this kind of online culture didn't exist. They would be playing by themselves. I hear you. Nowadays, it is much more, you join the Discord server, you join a subreddit, you're playing online, you are part of a community. And it's an international, disparate, borderless community. So you can't just like, hey, let's meet up IRL. And, it's not always possible. I don't think it's bad. That said, I agree. I think you need balance. People should be going out and trying to engage in the real world more. But in and of itself, it's a good thing. I think it's a nice thing.
Okay. Well, thank you for that perspective. What do you guys think? Leave your comments. Send me hate mail if you hate what I have to say. That's fine. I'll be okay.
Or just unite and hate watch us. That's fine too. No, if you don't.
That's true too. Yes.
No.
But be sure to like and subscribe. Well, I'm a big believer in those personal, face-to-face relationships, and I just think we can do better. I think we can do a lot better because, one of the other things about not having those relationships, not having those friendships, is that it's also killing us faster. Those that are lonely are 30% more likely to suffer from heart disease and 50% more likely to develop dementia. So I want to pause here to say, these statistics are not new. They've been around for the past 15 years or so because scientists have and researchers have really been trying to dig into diseases in seniors. But what is new is that these problems are creeping into younger and younger men, so midlife or middle-aged men. And so I think that's a very disturbing trend that we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good. That's for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think so yes, I think we've sort of trying to establish that like loneliness or isolation has lots of negative consequences. So you had just cited, Mike, again, going back to that long-term Harvard study, like literally studying people throughout their entire lives. We've seen that's definitely the case as well. I mean, to me, this comes back to this idea of like what we have is sort of an engagement problem, a relationship problem. Like, how do we get people out and more engaged? And maybe some of that is online. I think we both believe more strongly that in person is really beneficial, and we can't neglect the in person piece of it. And so, I guess for me, the question kind of becomes like, if you feel stuck or maybe don't know what to do, like, where do you go from there? And it can be intimidating, like the idea of like, oh, what if I reach out to someone or want to connect and they don't reciprocate, and I feel like, it can feel like you're being excluded and stuff. Like, that's certainly a concern, but I think it's also worth just trying, reach out to people, make yourself, if it's like a little reminder to be like, oh, let me text someone and see if we can meet up. And maybe it's going back to some of those friends that you've lost touch with over the years, a friend you haven't talked to in 5 or 10 years, but you were really tight in the past. That's a great opportunity to reconnect. And that's actually happened to me this past weekend. I was at a friend's wedding. It was mid-September when we're taping this. And so was at a wedding with a close friend from high school who we hadn't seen each other in person since 2018 because of kids and COVID and other things. It lives in a different part of the country. But when we saw each other in person again, it's like we picked right back up where we had left off because we had such a long history together and like connections with one another. And then at that wedding, I also saw friends of his and sort of mutual friends of ours that I haven't talking to in any way, shape, or form. So not text or call or anything in probably 10 or 12 years. And some of my best memories from the weekend was just sitting down with them and talking and kind of catching up, hearing what's going on with their lives, and just reconnecting that way. And it was really energizing, to be honest. And that weekend experience got me thinking about this whole idea of friendship and engagement and how do we build quality relationships. And yeah, it takes effort, but I think it's definitely worthwhile. It was funny. One of the friends I haven't seen in at least 10 years discovered that she lives about an hour and a half away from me now. We didn't know that she's got 2 young boys. So we're going to try to figure out how do we get our families together and like meet up at some point in the fall and let the kids run around. And then the 2 couples, we can have some wine or beers or something and just kind of relax. But like, had I not made the effort to go to the wedding to kind of strike up that conversation, even though we hadn't seen each other in a long time, we wouldn't be where we are now. So I do think there's something about like trying to think through how do we try to build those relationships or how do we take that first step. And sometimes it is just, reach out to someone you haven't talked to in a while and just at least offer to try to reconnect. And you might be surprised by where it leads.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. It's about taking that first step. And something you said just reminded me of our mutual friend who lives here, used to live in D.C., but lives here now. And we tried to get him to come to homecoming. Was it homecoming last year? And
yes,
he was like,
yeah,
"Oh,
right.
I can't be bothered." It's like I don't want to come. It's like, okay, like, dude, come on. You live like right down the street from our school now. Just make the fucking effort. Because I feel like we got to turn this boat around, guys. I'm very worried that it's only going to get worse if we don't. We're not talking to one another. We're basing our friends on like how many friends we have on Facebook. We're attached to our screens and we're catching up entirely through social media. We got to get back to that face-to-face interaction, or at least if somebody doesn't live locally, trying to give them a call or do a Zoom call or whatever it takes. But I would challenge every guy, especially every midlife guy listening to this, to just go out to a bar or catch up with a friend, anything you can to just, reconnect with somebody who's made a meaningful impact on your life at some point, just to try to reconnect, just catch up with them. You never know where a friendship might lead, and how rewarding that can be in the long term. So
Cool. I think we leave it on a positive note. That's a good thing, right? So just try to reach out to someone, say hello, connect. Yeah.
Just one person. Not that big of a deal. And with that, we'll close it out after a good 30 minutes. Thank you for joining us. Tell your friends to subscribe, leave comments, leave your feedback. Be sure to like this. And until next time, good luck, guys.
Thanks.